They deliver it. Ask if you as you need. Here you go. It's your auto. It's auto part. Participating card. Prescription products require an online consultation with that. Only available at the appropriate.
Hey guys, good news. The outrageously expensive little blue pill is now generic, which means you can get the prescription medication to treat ED at affordable prices. And Hims makes it extra affordable. You pay just $30 for a month's supply. And right now, get your first online doctor's visit totally free when you go to 4hims.com/joy. That's right, free, zero copay, no expensive appointments, no awkward face-to-face conversations to get your prescription. Hims connects you to doctors online who can evaluate you and, if appropriate, prescribe your ED medication. And a pharmacy sends it right to your door. Hims makes it affordable, private, and incredibly easy. Nobody likes dealing with ED. Now, thanks to Hims, nobody has to. And that's really good news. To start your free online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, 4hims.com/joy. That's 4hims.com/joy for your free online visit. FORHIMS.com/joy.
Every home has things it needs that need to be maintained, fixed, or replaced. It's here to help. You can easily find what you order online. Up to free delivery over 1 million items. You have the essentials you need. But you need to yourself. Home Depot. Doers get more.
Guys, waking up over and over to pee is not okay. But now you can reduce those nighttime bathroom trips with the ingredients in Super Beta Prostate P3 Advanced. We're talking about less urges to pee at night, less bathroom trips during the day, and better bladder emptying. It's like taking 3 prostate supplements in one. You can try a full 30-day bottle of P3 Advanced, free. Just pay shipping and handling. No strings attached, no obligations, and no commitments to buy. This is a 30-day supply, absolutely free. Call 1-800-478-0853. Super Beta Prostate is the best-selling brand in major retailers like Walmart. But for this no strings attached free bottle, you must call now. Call 1-800-478-0853. Don't miss out on this unprecedented free offer. Call 1-800-478-0853. 1-800-478-0853. Life, Love, and the Grind is sponsored by Life, Love, and the Grind Limited. And to the extent applicable, views and opinions expressed therein do not necessarily reflect anything what the company or its management.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the episode of Life, Love, and the Grind. We're joined by Sean Allen and Rosa Speaky. We're looking forward to a great show today. It's been a very trying time for all of us being stuck at home, trying to find new dynamics in relationships. Tell me some of the excitement you've been dealing with. I know you've been putting on some shows in your free time. Tell us about the latest.
Yeah, so today's kind of exciting because we got the divorce, kind of the marriage, to keep the marriage strength stronger. And last Friday,
see, I hate talking about divorce attorneys, so I was trying to put that off, but the way to jump right now with that. So introduce us.
So to flip what we just had on Friday, where we focused on the love lockdown and the just kind of the differences of being single in these downtimes, which is obviously it's trying in its own way too. You know, I mean, there's no bars, there's no nightlife, you're not going out, you're not seeing friends, you're not going on dates. So we got to, have 4 really incredible guests talk about what it's like being single. And now today we're going to focus on the marriage aspect and what it's like to be dealing with a marriage and a family during the lockdown and quarantine, which obviously is very trying.
I get with the same challenges with the lack of easy access to the alcohol and constantly being confined in the limited space with a bunch of people. And I got to say, when we have a divorce attorney, it's more to learn about some of the challenges that people are facing and how we can get through this drama, just over some pitfalls that have been affecting relationships, and essentially talking to us about how we can come out better from some of the tips that she's learned through her time.
Yeah, absolutely. So we want to focus on the positives, right? We don't want to focus so much on not so much on what it's take to get a divorce, but how to avoid the divorce and focus on building this relationship and coming out of this quarantine, which, God willing, in Illinois ends June 1st, a lot stronger and a lot healthier in both the single life and the the married life. So we focus a lot on love this weekend. We're focusing on, we're life on the grind, but let's really turn the love aspect of being single and now being in relationships.
Absolutely. I'm excited. I think we should get right to introduce her.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell us a little about
we have Marie Sarantakis, and she sent us her resume. It's an incredible resume. It's about 8 pages long. And she's just an incredibly smart and talented young woman in a divorce lawyer who has a very great background and a very interesting resume. For young, we like to shine light on the young, successful people who rise, and I think found a gem in this young lady.
Someone asked, who's your guest for today? And I said, nobody you need to worry about. Why did you not listen and do something else? But if she gives a call in, because it's all the shows that we've been having. There's been that friction. We'll get to that as well.
Yeah.
But I without further ado.
Yeah, Marie, are you on the line?
I am. Thank you guys so much for that generous introduction. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for joining us. So let's dive in a little bit. So tell us a little bit about your background and kind of what you've been experiencing through these, coronavirus quarantine times.
Sure. So I specialize in high net worth litigation in and out of the courtroom a lot. But I also, outside of contentious litigation, really enjoy doing more collaborative work and mediation. So that's when we actually sit in a conference room, other attorneys, we try to get things resolved. In mediation, it's just with the parties. And we try to really get things wrapped up without the judge weighing in, without parties having to incur a lot of legal fees. And that's something I really enjoy. Another part of my job that I find to be incredibly rewarding is I work as a guardian at litem. And we often call them GALs. And a GAL is essentially an attorney that's appointed to represent children in litigation and to represent what's in their best interest. So that's something I absolutely love doing. I also am a parenting coordinator. So I kind of joke it's like being a babysitter for parents who don't get along. And whenever they're in a time of conflict, they need someone to help, I don't want to say mediate, but help them learn how to communicate better with each other. Or if they run into conflicts and they don't necessarily want to run back to court, they call me. I help bring them to center. So those are some things I really enjoy doing in my practice. My office is in Oak Brook. It's in the Lazadro Lapidary Museum. Now, a lot of people don't know what lapidary is, and I must admit, when I first looked into the space, I didn't know either. It's actually gemstones. And I absolutely love it. We're in the midst of construction now, and we were actually supposed to be moving in this month, but things got a little backtracked given coronavirus pandemic. So we're a little behind. We're in the midst of construction now, and we were actually supposed to be moving in this month, but things got a little backtracked given coronavirus pandemic. So we're a little behind schedule, but we're looking forward to getting in there very shortly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's a beautiful facility. I know when we talked about it, I had no idea what any of that meant. And I'm going to check this out. Just gorgeous gemstones, and actually a very intriguing building altogether. So I encourage you, if you haven't checked it out when all this is over, make it a point to see it. But I got to tell you, one of the things I'm very excited about is we've had a lot of guests on. I know that your family members, as well as some of my family members and friends, have had a lot of questions. And we want to encourage all of our listeners to also call in with any questions you might have at 773-763-9278. And Marie can walk us through some of these questions that we have.
Yeah, I mean, this is unprecedented times, Marie, and we've never seen this, and with all the courts shut down. I mean, how do we navigate through these? I mean, this is tough. People are locked together, and if you're kind of already having a rocky relationship as it is, how do we strengthen that in a time when you're forced to, be stuck with each other? And a lot of our members and people are still working, essential workers. But now you're doing all the hard work without all the pleasure of what that hard work produces.
I'll tell you this, it also disrupts routine to a bit, and it's no one's fault. It's we're all victims of the circumstance. I work 2 to 10, typically 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. My ritual is to wake up, read the New York Times, and just, have my me time before I go into work. And now I got the 30 kids yelling and, Dad, check this out, this and that. It's like just your normal routine, just what you have become accustomed to. for everyone, it's just kind of up in the air. Is this part of the problem that you're seeing, Marie, or could it be part of the problem?
Oh, huge. Everything is up in the air. There's so much uncertainty, there's so much fear, and certainly that leads to trouble in relationships, no doubt about it. I think it's interesting. There's really two ways of looking at this pandemic, and I have couples who look at this, not my clients, obviously, but clients who look at this as an extended staycation. They love being home with their family. They can sleep in, they cook breakfast together, they're having dinner at the family table, they're going for walks. And this is really a dream come true in certain respects, right? And then there's others who look at this as sort of an incarceration, that they're trapped at home with these prisoners who are just needy and wanty and are demanding all these things of them, and they can't even meet their own basic needs, much less the needs of everybody else in their household. So, I really hope that people look at this the former way, because there really are some blessings to be found in this chaos.
Well, how often do we say that we wish we had more time to spend with family, that we're working too much? I wish I could take a break. And now you're kind of forced into really realizing if this is what you wanted at any given point. And we've got to learn kind of to come out of it better. John?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, what's the biggest thing? I don't spend enough time with my family. I work too much. It's all about the rat race. And then now we have this huge pushing pause, and everyone's losing their minds to go back to work and get away from their families. You know what I mean? It's kind of funny, So how do you keep this? How does everybody kind of stay calm in this? And I get the financial woes of you're laid off, you're losing money, but the federal government's offering up $600 on top of everyone's unemployment, which is kind of
you're getting paid to
chill. Some people are making $1,000 to $1,200 a week home and not putting themselves at risk.
Right. Yeah. So, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Tell us some of your tips with this.
Yeah. So, one of the things that fascinated me is I started reading about what was going on in Wuhan. And in Wuhan, they were saying that there were tons of divorce filings after the rate of infection began to decline. And I started thinking about why that is. And thinking, of course, that's probably what's going to happen here. And I don't think we can avoid divorce unless we talk about what's causing it to happen. And I think you're touching on a great point there when you talk about the financial woes, which may be the most obvious, because clearly finances are a major reason for divorce and marital problems in the first place. So those issues are only exacerbated at a time like this. And so rather than even saying it's necessarily finances, I like to say it's scarcity. Scarcity is the real issue. So we're seeing this on a macro level. So for example, the whole toilet paper crisis. And if I may digress, I don't get it. Why the toilet paper? I'm not sure. Maybe you guys have some insight into that.
I have none, and it's scary. I think how social media can take something and explode it so quickly. I think started with one person probably posting that they need to get a lot of toilet paper, and the wave of chaos through social media has completely shut down toilet paper throughout the world. It's kind of a phenomenon brought on by the social media. What do you think, Rosie?
I again have no idea. All I know is I'm taking advantage. Cover myself up a lot of situations because we have a stash of it. But but that aside, I don't get it. It's just one of those things that you said.
I think people just panic. I think people panic, and when they don't understand something, they just go crazy.
Well, you're going to laugh, but I was actually in the Bahamas in the midst of all this really amping up. And so I was there around mid-March, and I was there with some friends, actually a former client, and we were there and watching the news and started to see the panic and the chaos. And her and I actually went, if you follow me on Instagram, you can see the video. We went to their version of Walmart, and we actually bought a suitcase, filled it up with toilet paper, and shipped it home. So if anybody needs to hook up, let me know.
Yeah, there you go. You got a side business selling toilet paper. It's smart.
Exactly. So, I think it's very similar when we talk about scarcity, not just on that macro level, but on the micro level. Who's using up the resources at home? So there's sort of this panic in households. And when they have to allocate a limited set of resources amongst themselves, everybody's going to start to question, is there enough to go around? Who's using more than they should? And it really starts to become obvious who's sacrificing, who's becoming stingy. And there's a lot of greed. And partially, I think the difference in hierarchy and priorities that become obvious at a time like this. So, for example, let's say one spouse thinks it's really important to have a healthy savings account right now because we don't know what's going to happen with the economy. There's all kinds of job loss. We don't know what the future brings. And that's a pretty valid concern, right? I mean, everybody should be a little worried about money and resources and having some backup. Well, maybe another spouse is thinking, well, yeah, money's important, but money's really important at a time like this because now we need to stock up on that hand sanitizer, on those canned goods, whatever it may be, right? And so I know if one spouse is more than the other, and they have good, valid arguments as to why their position is best. But if both needs can't be met and there's no compromise, you have increased tension in the relationship. And so, it's not just a lack of money. I think that's very surface. Hopefully, both people are still able to generate an income if they both work, but that's not always the case. So we have people that are dealing with a lot less at a time and they're afraid there's not enough resources out there. So I guess that brings us to what you had asked. What can they do? How can you overcome this fear and scarcity? And my suggestion would be just try to be accommodating as much as you can be with what you have. So, for example, if you and your spouse are both working from home, maybe there's just one home office, and that's a really good spot that everybody wants to work from. Try to share it with your spouse. Try to do nice things for them. Remind them that you guys are a team working together on a common goal. And talk about your priorities. Talk about if you have an important work meeting, why maybe you should have the space tomorrow and maybe your spouse has a good space the next day. And realize that the other, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think, Marie, that's a great point. So Sarah has kind of had a little bit of an issue with my taking over her dining, which I really call the Life, Love, and the Grind podcast studio on the weekdays. But one thing that we have kind of decided is, like you said, figure out days. And we've actually, like they do with conference rooms, figured out and put notes into place like, okay, this time, this is mine. And that's kind of eased some of the tensions in terms of working it around. The kids will also say, okay, here's one thing. I have a little 7-year-old, I come down and she's like, yeah, I got a teleconference. You got to keep it down. Everything. I-learning, how the kids have their little teleconferences. So we've been kind of trying to share this area, but I think you're absolutely right. Even space has become a very valued commodity these days in the house, in the limited area.
Absolutely. And I guess that brings us to the next point that everybody's on top of each other, and familiarity breeds contempt. We're suddenly together all the time. And I think culturally speaking in the US, we're often very blessed to be able to pursue our individual interests. And we can get too used to thinking as an individual and maybe not as much as a family unit. And so in a lot of contemporary households, what we see is we have two spouses that are working. We may have kids that are in extracurriculars. We even have dogs that go to doggy daycare, right? So in a typical day, there may not be a huge, long amount of together time. And so now we have the total opposite where everybody's together constantly. And so when life came to a screeching halt like this, not only is it, oh, we're going to be together next week, but it almost feels like indefinitely. Like you said, we think this is June 1st, but we know that the cans might kick down the road a few times, and we don't really know when this is going to end. And so that's a lot of stress. That's a lot of pressure. And it's causing tension within households because they're not able to get out. They're not able to do their normal routines. And I think we also get, we have normally a lot of interaction with the outside world, whether it's in person or on social media, our colleagues, our peers, our Facebook friends. And we've become very dependent on these kinds of socializations, even more than our internal units, our nuclear families. And so I think a tip for me would be really look to your household, your family unit for socialization, for attention, for approval. And let's not focus as much on those distant relationships, but get to know those that are closest to us who we may have sadly lost touch with, not intentionally, but just because life takes over.
Yeah, absolutely. So we want to open up some calls. We got some calls from Marie. We're going to take a call right now and see what they got for you. Hello, is this Judge James?
I'm Judge James. I know Maria very well. She's a member of the Illinois State Bar Association, in which I was the president last year. Well, I have a question for Marie. How is she doing with respect to these Zoom conferences in the different jurisdictions? I'm now in DuPage County, and I'd like to know what her experience is with respect to Zoom conferences with the members of the judiciary and the other counties.
Hello, Your Honor, and thank you so much for calling in. Hello to you and hello to Janice. Thank you very much. So that's an excellent question, and it's been interesting. So as many people that know me have come to know, I have a puppy named Athena, and Athena has become my Zoom buddy. And so she's often crashing into these rather official calls, some which may be informal settlement conferences between parties, and some which may be of a more formal nature with the court. And I think we've all grown accustomed to these little distractions and these charms. And in a way, I think it's brought us all closer because it brings such a different human element to what we do. Often things are so serious and formal and regimented. And I think we've all come to know each other pretty well as people and have been humanized in this process. So that part of it, I think, has actually been a blessing because we need more of that in family law. And I think as far as the courts go, we're going to see more and more of these Zoom conferences handling regular court appearances, hearings, and perhaps even trials moving into the future, given how long this pandemic is going to last. I think Zoom has been a blessing in so many ways. Not that it's without its challenges, but it's really helped us get through this in such a productive way. And had this pandemic occurred 2-3 decades ago, this would have been so much of a bigger challenge. We're able to move things forward because of it.
So we appreciate the judge for calling in, Marie. I want everyone to stay tuned. We got Sean and Raza. We're going to run to a quick commercial break. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
This is Louis Kyer from GWC Injury Lawyers. Now that cannabis is legal in Illinois, and understanding the law and the risks associated with ingesting cannabis is critically important. Under the Cannabis Act, you can legally ingest marijuana only in a very limited number of places. Public, not in government or school premises, and not even in your own condo or apartment. Landlord has a no smoke. Positive test is potentially lethal to your rights and brief employment, work injuries, and private. Your employer has a zero tolerance drug and alcohol policy. You can be terminated if you fail the drug test, even though your cannabis consumption. If you're hurt on the job, it's positive cannabis. The legal presumption is that your action was caused in part because of the cannabis. For workers' compensation, you only deny DUI laws is not better. Why? Either cannabis or alcohol for your career. If you want to indulge in legal THC before you ingest, read up on your rights.
Life, Love, and the Grind is proudly sponsored by Rich Lewandowski and our friends at Breaker Press, Chicagoland's top choice for UV print. They're a third generation family-owned business that has been helping unions in political campaigns since 1976. We've been involved in hundreds of winning elections, and we get our printed materials to you on time and every time. Whether you're running for the White House, we take you concept to design to print to mail, or you support on the arts. Breaker Press to help you reach the voters you need. Call Rich at 773-852-5733 or email Rich at breakerpress.com. For all of your political printing needs, the best breakerpress.com.
All right, if you're just tuning in, you got Sean and Raza, Life on the Grind. We got Marie Sarantakis on the line to put lawyer. She's telling us how to keep the bond between man and wife strong through these hard times. I want to thank Judge James Crosby for calling this question. And we have another judge calling in, Marie. We have Judge Rick. Hold on. Hey, Judge Rick, you got Sean and Raza here. And Marie.
How are you both? And hi, Marie. Judge Rick, thanks on who big domestic relationships. How you been?
Hello, Connor. I've been wonderful. So great to hear from you.
So I heard what Judge McCluskey had to say as a follow-up to that. And he had an occasion to utilize some of the access to justice programs that the domestic relations work in Cook and, of course, in DuPage County on a limited basis that people can get into this time.
I have, and it's been absolutely wonderful. You know, I think a byproduct of all of this is we're forced to find other ways of doing things. And I think as a result, we're going to see some increased efficiency. For example, when we reach agreements with parties, oftentimes it could be a long process to get our agreement into the courthouse, depending on how busy things are and certain dynamics. And so now we're able to email in agreed orders to in places. And we can literally, from the time we reach an agreement to the time we have a file stamp on it and it's approved by the court, can theoretically be in a matter of an hour. And so it's been excellent for many of my clients because they've saved so much time and money in the process. And it'll be interesting to see what things carry over from this as we ease into a new normal and what the future is really going to look like. But I think we're going to see a lot of long-term changes in the legal system as a result, and maybe some more needed.
So there's some good points. I appreciate the fact that you've been able to work with the system in its current form. Maria, I've known Maria a long time, and she's been very active with the Illinois State Bar, and as also with the local bar as well. And great job. So it's good to hear that you're working on things, Maria. And I'm pleased that things work out for you in the current work that we have available.
Yeah, thank you very much, Judge Rick, for calling us in. And actually, Marie, that brings us to a couple of questions that that Sean and I had coming in terms of changes with the courts closed, and if there's changes to, say, custody agreements, how are those filed?
Yeah, so Marie, real quick. Yeah, so you know, you have these court filings of, you know, what, let's say, for example, because this is a man who asked it, you know, he's ordered to pay a certain amount on his salary. During the coronavirus, his salary's cut. So, you know, how do you go through the court system that asks you to pay a certain amount that's been allocated to the courts, but now, you know, without having to reallocate it, how do you get to a different amount? You know what I mean?
That's a great question. I'm so glad this got brought up.
Mm-hmm.
So courthouses are closed, yes. But certain things are still being heard and certain things are still moving along as they should. So for example, we can still electronically file documents. So this person can still file pleading. This person can still ask the court for relief. The court will be on notice of the date that they're asking the court to do something. Now, we can't literally go and physically be at the courthouse right now because it's just not safe. So a few things can happen. One, if something is an emergency, and how we define emergency can vary, but it really does have to be an emergency. Because of course, in family law, I think everybody perceives that their issue may be an emergency, and it very well may be, or it may not. It really depends. So I think it's really important for lawyers right now to have an understanding of what courts consider to be an emergency. And clearly, the most obvious definition is going to be a child that's in danger. You know, the parent absconding with a child and going across state lines or airplane, are they taking the kid across borders? You know, is the kid in jeopardy of getting ill? Something like that. That's an emergency that the courts are going to hear right away. And they're typically hearing these things either via Zoom or via telephone. So those kinds of issues can be dealt with. Finances typically, and I say typically, of course, because there's really no black and white, you know, there's obviously exceptions to every rule, tend not to be considered an emergency. So in that case, you probably want to put something on file unless there's more that we don't know about, and ask the court to hear it as soon as possible. So we are getting new court dates that are going further out. One of the most common reasons divorce attorneys go to court is we're required to do something called a status. And we show up to status, it's usually every 30 to 45 days, and we report to the court what's going on in somebody's case. And the reason for this is very obvious. You know, the courts want to make sure that things are moving along, that they're progressing, the cases aren't going stagnant. And so for the time being, status appearances aren't an emergency. They would jeopardize everybody's safety. So those have been put on pause in most of the counties that I practice in. Hearings, however, which are when somebody comes in and says, I need the court to do something. We have a problem. We can't resolve it amongst ourselves. We need a judge to interfere. And right now, what a lot of counties are doing is if both sides agree, a hearing can be conducted with a judge, either via telephone or via Zoom. So things are moving along. So I think it's somewhat of a misconception that the courthouses are closed. I think that's not really the case. I mean, we still have a lot of work to do. It's just a different way of doing it. We're not physically going into the business anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got another call, Marie. We got John from LaGrange. Hey, John, you got Sean and Raza, Marie here.
Hi, John.
Hello, I have a question for you, Marie. My wife is driving me nuts to get out of the house. And yes, I'm sort of an intense character. But with all the different rules, and I'm about living in my car. I'm trying to keep my marriage going. But with the different country laws and you're supposed to wear a mask, I'm just not doing so well. I don't know, there's probably no defense to the fact that I'm being driven out of my house to me hanging out sitting in my car. I don't know what to do. Do you have any available? I don't think I need it. I love my life. I just don't know what to do.
Sure. So marriage counseling is available. I actually have a lot of friends who are therapists currently, and they're quite busy right now. They're doing a lot of Zoom and telephone sessions as well. So that's certainly an option. But what I would recommend is this. Get out and go for a drive. You know, it's one of the few things we can still do and stay away from people. Just go on a little cruise. Go enjoy yourself, have some downtime, listen to the radio, listen to Sean and Raza. Just get away for a little bit, but you don't necessarily have to be around others. And the other thing I would say is have some sort of space in your house that's yours and some space that's hers, whatever that may be. Maybe she's got a craft room, maybe you've got a man cave, but there needs to be some place at home that you can do anything you want and you don't worry about somebody complaining, why is the glass of water sitting there? Why did you put that on that shelf? It's your space, you do whatever you want.
We do have two separate sort of living areas, so we can watch separate TV shows and things. But I guess now, because we're more, I'm driving her nuts. We watch her Lifetime TV with this couple three pots, and I watch something more adventurous. I guess we're just on each other's nerves, but I do care for her, so I just head out every day. And I'm hanging out, but I feel weird. I'm going to the same places. I feel awkward. I don't really want to go to counseling. I don't know if she's participating.
Okay.
Sorry.
Now, so I have another tip for you. You guys need to find a way to laugh together, right? So, how about you go onto Netflix, put up some Tiger King, and I guarantee, no matter what differences you have, at some point, the two of you are going to look at each other and chuckle.
I'm trying to avoid Tiger King. Everyone's seen it, but yeah. You guys want to watch it, you watch it.
John, that's you and me both. So like, everybody's talking about it. I must be the last person to jump on this bandwagon because, again, my wife's been telling me too. You got to watch this. I am with you. I'm avoiding it. John, have you?
I've watched Tiger King. I highly recommend it. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. But if it's going to help rebuild your marriage, man, either learn to love Tiger King or learn to love Lifetime Channel. You're going to go wrong with either.
He has two cats that are off the equity in the next year.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, John, thanks for calling, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Marie, I think John nailed it. I mean, I think we're more people that are talking to it. And, you know, they love their just looking for ways to kind of reclaim their own space and maybe get that little bit of time away, that time to kind of do their own thing. And now that you're kind of in the like this, I think your advice is great. Go for that drive. I'll tell you this. I'm going to say a personal story, which I'm sure will get me in trouble when I go home. We had in engagement anniversary that came up. And again, we're under quarantine. So Sarah's like, hey, shouldn't you be doing something special for me? I'm like, turn on the news. There's not much I can do. And exactly to the finest restaurant. But you raise a good point, I guess. Like Sean, you were saying, find the one thing you perhaps can do, together, whether it's the Lifetime channel or whatever else.
I learned to compromise. I mean, I can't talk about it. I'm not married, but I think you gotta learn to compromise. Learn to go for those long walks and just kind of get out of each other's hair a little bit.
For a couple of kids, it's an adventure.
Yeah. So moving forward, Marie, we talked about, scarcity of resources. What are the other tips you have? I know you kind of have like a 6-step plan. Why don't you bring us to the second, portion of this?
Sure. So we were somewhat talked about what leads to divorce. What brings people down this path? And why do we think we're going to see an increase post-pandemic? A big reason, in my opinion, is there's always this group of people that I call are in divorce purgatory, right? And they've been thinking about it for a long time. Maybe they've even met with a divorce attorney, but they haven't quite pulled the trigger. And that's good. I mean, you don't want people to make these decisions rashly. There should be a lot of thoughtful contemplation before actually doing something like this. So I think these people, these in-between divorce purgatory people, are likely the ones most going to get divorced when this is all said and done, because they've really been waiting. They've just been one step away, and now they're probably chomping at the bit for this to be done so they can do it, because there's a lot of reasons right now where it may not be possible, even if somebody truly desperately wants to get divorced. So, for example, maybe because of the finances, that they need to have 2 people in the household to buy things. Maybe they're afraid that if they're not around and the kids are now split up into households, that they won't have control over the kids and their well-being. Or, maybe it's just logistics, that the real estate market isn't too great right now for obvious reasons. So now is not a great time to sell a house or to even move. So there's a lot of reasons that people may know they're going to get divorced, but aren't yet doing it. So how about for those people? Because those are going to be the top ones to turn around. The tip I would give them is, look, try your very best to turn your marriage around. If there's any hope, exhaust that hope. Try whatever you can. Just be nice, be thoughtful, do kind things for the other person. If you just spend 24 hours and intentionally don't say anything negative, nothing hostile, just be kind and polite and thoughtful, see if it makes a difference. How it will make a difference, not just for your spouse, but also for you and the way you look at the world and the way you feel. So a lot of people don't actually get divorced because they feel this immense sense of guilt. So try your very best. Give it your last shot. Give it everything you've got. You have nothing to lose. So if you still find yourself after this point feeling like you really need to get divorced, at least you know you tried. And you can move forward with your own independent life, not feeling that sense of regret.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you go into a relationship with love, you go into a marriage hoping it lasts forever. Then I think you need to take some time in this quarantine to kind of do a little self-reflection, and kind of just, take a breather before you make any rash decisions, because obviously these are very trying times, and it's very emotionally, financially draining, So, yeah, that's absolutely a true thing. So, right in there, what do you think? I'm the single guy. I don't know.
Yeah, right. There's a lot of uncertainty out there. People are dealing with their own anxiety and the anxiety that they get through their day, and now you throw the fact that you also have. I mean, there's certain roles, right? There's certain expectations. Maybe you're expected to provide, or maybe you're to do certain things, and now in this new environment, you got to redefine roles. And so it's just figuring out where you fit into this grand scheme of uncertainty.
Yeah. Well, roles of No, go ahead.
Yeah, please.
Well, we all have expectations of what we want our spouse to be doing, right? In our head, we have this picture of maybe husbands want the supermodel, cute cleaver wife who's making these phenomenal homemade dinners and homeschooling the kids. And maybe a wife has this idea of a chiseled hunter-gatherer who's protecting the home at a time like this. And when that fantasy fails, which it undoubtedly will, we're disappointed. And we start to blame the other person for not meeting our needs. So we either adjust our expectations or we become disappointed. And in a time like this, everybody's roles and routines are being redefined. They have to be. So maybe things that were very routine before that nobody thought about have to be reevaluated. Who's cooking dinner? Who's getting the kids ready in the morning? Yeah.
No, absolutely. I think.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's an excellent point. Even while Sean and I are here, Sarah's at home, putting the show together, sharing the feed, that sort of thing. So it's just trying to balance out. Usually she'd be joining us here as well, joining out. Okay, who sits this one out to make sure our family obligations are met and everything else. It's just really one of those times where we have to reevaluate how everything's done. Isn't that right, Sean?
Well, I think the different roles in parenting too. I mean, a lot of times, the guys going to work, the girls going to work, well, now they're both home and they're both, parenting. Maybe there are different standards of how to raise children is differently, and now you're kind of slammed into it together. And that's going to start some debate and some arguments.
And the kids have certain expectations on how they prefer to be raised and their parenting style for you. We've had quite a few discussions around, should you even be discussing this with me? There's a high learning going on right now. But,
absolutely.
Everyone seems to have an opinion when they're all stuck in the house.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're at scarcity of resources, people on the cusp of divorce, and, this is probably the final straw where you're really evaluating your whole life and your relationship, because obviously you have nothing but time to do that. So what are the other, what's another kind of major factor in this trying times of divorce?
Sure. I think one of the biggest ones is a reason that we see divorce all the time, which is a lack of intimacy with one's partner. So a lot of people come in and they have a consult with me, and oftentimes they'll ask, "What brought you here?" I want to know if it's a rash decision, if they've really thought about this a long time. And a lot of times people tell me that they feel like they're living with a platonic roommate, and they've been in separate rooms for years. And that's a huge mistake for a marriage. You're pretty much setting it up to fail. And it kind of blows my mind often to hear how many years marriages go on like this. And so oftentimes then people cheat or grow to resent each other. So in a typical day, maybe they were excusing this, saying, "Oh, I'm really tired, I'm traveling all the time, I'm working too much." But, during a time of pandemic, those typical reasons go away. And so then you're kind of faced with this reality of, if you guys aren't sleeping together, it's probably because one or both of you doesn't really want to. And, a time like this more than ever, I think people are probably feeling a little frumpy. The salons, the gyms are closed. People are eating their pain away and living in house clothes, and people aren't exactly feeling cute and sexy.
Well, and what? The next thing that I think we'd like to talk about is, I know financial stress is always something that gets in the middle of a good marriage. And so that we don't have to feel the financial pain and strength or pinch ourselves, we're going to go to these words from our sponsors.
Quick commercial break. We'll be right back. Yeah.
Megan Financial is an independent retirement and financial services firm dedicated to working men and avoiding debt. Megan provides straightforward terms and financial prices and defined benefit and defined contribution plans, as well as participant and retirement offerings. Megan Financial has the knowledge and experience to navigate the union member. Securities and advisory services offered. Terra Advisors LLC, NRA, SIPC, a dealer and a registered investment advisor. Terra is under separate ownership from any other named office position at 5321 South 94th Avenue, in Park, Illinois.
Just joining us, this is Raza Siddiqui and Sean Allen, and we're with Marie today. Marie has a very successful practice as a divorce attorney. She's kind of walking us through some of the challenges that people are facing right now and how to kind of get past this, overcome these obstacles. And what I've always heard is finances. Finances are one of the biggest causes or causes of divorce. Is that a true statement, Marie?
Oh, absolutely.
And I mean, tell us how we can kind of make it a less painful thing to reevaluate roles, because obviously the unemployment numbers right now are skyrocketing. It's a tough situation for a lot of families. What's some of the general advice you'd give to people?
Sure, you're worried about being close and being kind to your partner. I think we get so caught up with our own fears, our own concerns, our own needs, that we're not thinking how the other person is dealing with all of this. And so in a time where there's so much fear and concern, sometimes the other person just needs to hear, hey, it's going to be okay. We're in this together. We'll get through it. And they're afraid of losing so much. People can't handle the fear and uncertainty of also losing their relationship. So if you just let the other person know you're there, that's going to go a really long way.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got another caller here. For a second, it's Mona here. Hi, Mona. You got Sean and Rosa Marie here. How you doing?
I just was wondering, after being in quarantine with my husband, I realized I just can't stand him anymore, and I don't want to be with him. But I don't work, and I have no money. How can I file for divorce?
Marie?
Sure. Mona, that's a great question. So a lot of times in divorce cases, what we do is we ask the court, if one spouse works and the other spouse doesn't, we ask the court to give the spouse that's not earning some financial resources to be able to hire a lawyer, to be able to defend themselves. Now, if there's a huge disparity of your incomes, you'll likely get something called maintenance, used to be called alimony. And depending on the length of your marriage would depend on how long you get that for. So there are ways when you come out of this to be able to have some financial resources, maybe until, if it's an option for you to get reemployed, for you to maybe go back to school, find what it is that you want to do and have some income coming in the meantime. And as far as hiring an attorney and having the resources there, again, you can either petition the court to ask for that, or maybe there's a household credit card, something you can put it on in the meantime to get the ball rolling. But the courts want to make sure that both parties have parity. They have equal ability to hire a lawyer and to represent and defend themselves in a case.
Okay, so he could possibly have to pay for it then, maybe.
Potentially.
In the
Yeah.
long run. Yeah. Okay, because he does make more money than I do. I don't have any income. We've been married for 20-something years, so but I just can't take it anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
Marie, let me ask you a question. And thank you very much for Mona for calling in and sharing your question. But Marie, one of the questions I have is, in a situation like this, are you getting a lot more calls than typical? Is it about average? Or is a story like the one we just heard more and more common with the uncertainty and the stresses people are dealing with?
We are busier than ever. I have a huge number of consults each day. I'm doing them either via Zoom or via telephone for the time being. But something interesting that I'm seeing is we're not being retained as much. And that's a common theme I'm hearing from a lot of divorce attorneys. So I think a lot of people are fantasizing about the idea of divorce. But again, given the uncertainty and the logistical barriers, it may not be the time to file yet, depending on their own individual situations. And I also think that before, to go through a client consult, people would drive to an attorney's office, it would take some time. Whereas now you can pick up the phone, it's pretty effortless. You just talk. And so I think people are probably interviewing and consulting with more divorce attorneys than ever. Whereas traditionally, we would often have people just come sit with one attorney, and that's the attorney they use.
It's almost like you can window shop these days because you have nothing but time. So you're probably trying to go through, maybe Googling and figuring out what all is going on. What we have but time.
Exactly. And maybe this makes me a bad divorce attorney, but if I think there's hope, I try to tell people, take it out, give it your best. Because again, you don't want people having that guilt saying, I should have tried harder. Before you come see me, before you file the petition, make sure that you're ready. And I think a lot of people are going to get clarity because of the situation. They're going to say, no, I tried, I gave it my best. At this point, I know what I want to do.
Yeah, I mean it's a good point, and I give you respect for being a divorce lawyer, but also fighting for the sanctity of marriage, and you want to see people succeed, but at the same time, if it does not work, things can be as amicable as possible, and hopefully people call you or contact the right lawyer and do what they got to do.
Well, absolutely, and thank you again for so many questions.
Thank you for all of our callers calling in.
To come in. Let's try to see if we can get to one. We have that line. And Teresa, you are on the line with Marie, or should be shortly here.
Hey, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear.
Yeah. We got Sean, Rosa, and Marie here. How you doing?
Good. You know what they say, when you got a lawyer on the line now, it ain't cheap. Yeah. So let's get to that question. What you got for us?
Apologize. This is Tressa from the Family Nation. I'm going to be holding for hours. I didn't expect to be on your show. Sorry.
No, you know what? We're always welcome to bring in you. We'd love to be on your show too when that happens. But again, thanks for calling, and we will listen to you very soon.
Nice to hear from you, Teresa.
Yeah. So what do you have for me to kind of just like closing thoughts and for like people trying to get their relationship better off?
Sure. So I guess just some quick tips would be try to reminisce. Maybe go through some old family photos, talk about the time you met, go back to happier and simpler times, and think of the life that you guys have built together, and talk about where you want it to go, not just the past, but where do you see yourself in the future? This is a great time to talk about it and a great time to make life changes to make sure you get where you want to go. So that would be on the top of my list. I think that's very simple, easy, and very pleasant.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they're trying times financially, emotionally, raising kids. But, at the end of the day, I think it's just a good time to self-reflect, focus on yourself, focus on building your family. Nice weather's right around the corner. Go out, get some walks, some fresh air, try to find some good family time. And the best you can. I mean, we're all stuck in this together, and it's all feeling the hurt.
And you don't want to come out of it being like, I had this time with family. You always wish for it. Spent 2 weeks and we spent it, or 2 months at this point, and we spent it fighting. You really want to come out of it knowing you did everything you could to build a stronger family. At least that's what I keep thinking.
Yeah, exactly.
You had a good point with when you were talking about, it's an anniversary coming up. Look, the restaurants may be closed, but we can have date nights at home. There's no reason to not make a great dinner and pour some bubbly and light a candle and have a wonderful time at home with your spouse. In fact, I've seen really cute pictures all over social media of people doing that, of getting dressed up and sitting at their kitchen table and having a great meal. So, we have to change the way we do things, but we can still enjoy each other's company and have fun and escape the reality of the moment.
Absolutely, I agree. So how can someone, if they wanted to contact you, how can they find you, get a hold of you, or contact you?
Absolutely. So thank you for asking. They can find my website, so it's sarantakislaw.com, or they can give my office a call at 224-399-6767.
All right, sounds good. Well, we appreciate you coming on, Marie. Obviously, this was very insightful. We appreciate all of our callers calling in. And, to my advice for the guys, don't let the intimacy die. Do your best that you can with what we got. And,
gotta keep the romance going. Because at the end of the day, it's really about that chemistry. And we actually this again on the podcast, the love lockdown, that if you're in a situation like this, you really got to do whatever it takes to keep that going.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Marie Sarantakis, I appreciate your time. Thanks for being on the show. We really appreciate it. Thanks for all of our callers, our listeners. You can find us on Facebook, Life Loving the Grind, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, lifelovingthegrind.com.
Absolutely. And I want to thank again Sarah Sadat for working her magic remotely while we're out here doing this. She's kind of work behind the scenes. And of course, Paul, who's our producer, who's always helping keep everything going as well. We remiss and thank everyone. these are always a group effort, just like it is with the whole situation at home with the family. So we better make it work and be thankful for everyone who makes that work.
Absolutely. Well, next, you'll hear us next Sunday, 3 o'clock, live on the ground. Thanks, everybody.